people have to have a plan, a healthcare plan. Anybody up to 300% of poverty in Vermont can join the state plan. We subsidize that. And so the federal government does not pay for our subsidies. So in other words, if they pay 60 cents on the dollar for Medicaid, and we're paying 40, for every new person that joins that plan, we pay 40% of their cost. So we could see 10 to 13 million a year of additional cost from that bill. And this is partly based on what comes out. I think there's a lot of work between the administration and the legislature. And this is actually one area, I've got to say, the summer legislation and the executive branch have been working very closely to work with congressional delegation to try to minimize the cost to Vermont of this healthcare bill. I mean, and right now, I think it's more of a cost than a benefit. I mean, more people will be covered, more businesses will have access to insurance, individuals, but the state budget will not be positively affected.
Not be
positively affected.
Steve, this might be elaborating on what Ron was saying, but last year we passed a tax package.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was I bought down loans. The amnesty program, granted, we're only halfway through, but the amnesty program I know came up millions short. So, do we have a projection as to where we are, as to how much we're going to get out of that tax package? Actually,
it's a good question. We haven't. What happens is when we did the income tax changes, we sort of also pushed into a new tax program. If you don't forecast like the addition separately, I can try to come up with something on that. I think it was less than the 26.1 million, but the underlying revenues in some of those actions did better. The answer is no. I'll try to.
Thanks.
I think it did produce, I mean, a sizable chunk of money, whether it's 20 million or 26 million, it's definitely, you're right, there was some slippage. Yeah.
I'm sorry, when you said 20%, I've been using that number when I've been talking to people, Mayor, and I think the percentage is something that people really can relate to. So maybe at some point it would be great to have those, you're talking 20% when you're talking to constituents. If you say, 150 million, in some states that could be 2%. Obviously here we're talking a serious impact.
So if
I think that's very helpful. Because I've heard, the number's been 160, 150, 180, it's back and forth, but if you say 20%.
Well, 20% is 150
for both years.
For both years.
Yeah.
It really is, and what I really should get you all, and I'll make sure is the pie chart that I think we've given out other times, which says where a state general fund goes. And pretty soon you'll see that, if you start exempting things, it just quickly becomes an insurmountable problem. And the thing is, Vermont, 20% is not, we're in the middle of that. I mean, there are states that are in the 26%, 28%. There are states that have problems of close to 10 to 20% just in FY10. And then when 11 goes, they don't even bother to look at that yet. So there are some that are worse, some that are better. But it's big. I mean, it's really big. I don't, this is a mission. It'll be interesting to see what the governor puts forward. It's not, none of us envision exactly how this is going to unfold. I would say the good news is it's so big that you're going to have to go after things and make changes that you wouldn't have done in a normal year. And I think the idea for the changes of the public strategy group, ideas of doing more for less, changing government services, block managing things, coming up with stuff that one part or the other might not have done or may happen because you have a necessity.
One thing that keeps coming up for me as a lack of clarity, and it came up again with the challenges document, when we talk about percentage of 20% over 2 years and so forth. Are we talking about general fund, and therefore, for instance, in the challenges for change, when it talks about a 5% cut on something that's federally matched, it's actually a 15% cut that it means?
And that's a really good point. And it just goes to underscore how serious this is. If I'm cutting, if the federal match rate of Medicaid is 70 cents federal and 3 cents, 30 cents general fund, if I'm cutting 5–10% of that, the impact on consumers and individuals is way higher. So and part of the thing with, you'll hear the administration say, don't focus on match. If you focus on match, you're just going to get totally depressed because you can't cut anything because you're losing all these dollars. But it's a big deal. I mean, it really does understate the problem just to say, well, we're only cutting $10 million of Medicaid, because $10 million general fund Medicaid are actually would be 20, 30, 25 million or so of more. It'd be 35 million to the recipient. And so I think that's a really, really important point. That's why this 20% number, that's scary, but when you really think about what it buys, it's even scarier. But
when as these cuts are made, the additional pressures on our different programs, social programs and so on, social service, is that the AHS pressures 10 to 20 million? Is that what it is? Because I mean, as we cut things, people need more services. That goes up rather than down. Do you think that's a conservative $10 to $20 million?
I don't know. I mean, it's this number says 140 to 160 million is a range, and we've been using 150. And all of a sudden, when I hear Jim Ridden or Neil walk around, they go at least 150. So that means in their head they're probably thinking more 160.
Do these figures deal with the unemployment fund and the money we'll have to pay back?
No, and actually, but they do in a way. If you look up mine on FY 12 it is, it's a little UI interest payment start.
Yeah.
The way that works is you won't have to start paying interest until 2012. That's part of the $100 million deficit we have there. And again, that could change. I know there's a bill in Congress to not require interest for the next year or so. That could be postponed.
We have to pay the money back, right?
Yeah. And so that's right now, we've got it in there. We've got an interest assumption. At the beginning of 2012, we've been paying $8 million.
Do you have principal payback in there?
That is the, I think what the 8.4 represents interest in beginning payments on principal.
How does that get switched around in the future years, though? I mean,
well, you can see how it grows. We've got this 8.4. Well, this is part of the ongoing cost in future years. And so when you see about it, we have this $99 million shortfall in 12. That's if you solve all the problems of ongoing base in 11. And then for positive, if you solve all that $3 million in ongoing permanent stuff, then you start turning positive. But it would have been more positive if we didn't have to pay that money.
But I see it as being 8.4, and that might the things I've been hearing are in the tens of millions of dollars.
It's a slow payback. I think it's over 15 years. I don't know the numbers on that, and it also depends on the average of unemployment. I'm actually not an expert on that. That'd be a good thing to have a presentation on.
Thanks.
Steve, the reason why you don't include the unemployment is because it's business-based only, and it's not technically a general fund tax. And any monies that are paid back in the UI are paid back by businessmen only.
So we have to pay back
by the budget.
So we have to pay the interest on the.
Right, but I mean, that's why you're only showing the interest, and as John was saying, the monies that are owed will be owed by businessmen and not by the general fund.
So they'll pay it back, in the meantime, we'll be paying the interest.
Yeah, but the interest can only be paid out of general fund, but that doesn't happen until 2012.
Right.
Correct. Unless they change.
Yeah, unless they.
That's good. I'm glad, thank you. I obviously don't know that.